Welcome back. As Russia's war in Ukraine continues, the Biden administration continues to reverse all of the peace gains in the Middle East won by President Trump. Here with more, Director of Iranian Americans for Liberty, former Pennsylvania congressional candidate and Newsmax columnist Brian Leib. Also with us is Joe Biden advisor, foreign policy expert, and geopolitical analyst Harley Lippman. Welcome to you both, gentlemen. Brian, we begin with you. Major news in the Middle East over the weekend where the Israeli Air Force reportedly destroyed an Iranian drone factory in Syria. Mission targeted, we're told, arms shipments heading for Iranian-backed militias in Syria. Unknown if these Iranian drones are similar to the ones being used by Russia in the war in Ukraine. Brian, how pivotal was this strike by Israel, and what does it mean for the region as we go forward?
Chris, I think it was extremely pivotal for Israel to take this action. You know, as we've talked about before on this program, under the Joe Biden administration, unfortunately, we've surrendered our position of power and position of leadership on the world stage. And bad actors like Russia, like China, Iran, and many others are going to take advantage and exploit that weakness. Never in a million years, Chris, did I think that I would be looking for Israel to lead the charge, pushing back against the Islamic Republic of Iran. But that's exactly what's happening right now. And good for them. They have to, because there's no bigger existential threat to Israel than Iran.
Well, you're right there. Harley, let me bring you in. You helped negotiate President Trump's Abraham Accords in the Middle East. Things are obviously much different today in the Middle East under the Biden regime. Biden is dedicated to the Obama Ayatollah nuke deal, that's what I call it, which would make Iran a nuclear power and the regional hegemon. And then Biden has the gall to get upset with Saudi Arabia because they showed their displeasure with Biden's pro-Iranian stance by cutting oil production. As a Biden advisor, how does any of this, all these moves being made by the administration, make sense?
Well, I think the Biden administration has made a mistake in their approach to Saudi Arabia and Iran, for that matter. So I'm critically supportive, but I think that, number one, it was a mistake to humiliate, MBS. This is a man who is the president of Saudi Arabia now. He was the de facto ruler. He still is, will be for the next 50 years. And Biden said he wouldn't even talk to him. He'd only speak to his father. Now, if you want to insult the royal family, it's hard to think of a better way than doing that. Also, he called Saudi Arabia a pariah nation and said nothing socially redeeming is coming out of the kingdom. Now, that is not helpful. All that did was humiliate MBS. And I know from owning my own technology company, the very few times I've embarrassed people publicly, it backfired on me. Public humiliation is not effective. And if you want to speak about human rights, the murder of Khashoggi, well, do it privately and be effective about it. In the meantime, don't have a double standard. Russia murdered dissidents in London with poison. We still communicate and work with Russia. Other countries do it. We have to stop this negative attitude towards Saudi Arabia. I don't think Saudi Arabia is pro-Russian. I just think they're pro-Saudi Arabia. They would, if they didn't, if they lowered the production the way Biden would want them to, it would create. Sorry, if they increased production the way Biden would want them to, it would create a huge amount of losses for Saudi Arabia. So that's a problem for them. Yeah. But I think it's the problem with the approach.
Yeah, you see, sir, I understand all that too, and I think a lot of what you said is true. But I think that propping up Iran as a potential nuclear power has got to really stick in Saudi Arabia's craw. And Brian, maybe you want to comment on that, and also comment on Republicans in Congress. They're writing up a new bill named the Masha Amini Act. It's named for that 22-year-old Iranian woman who was killed by the regime's police for improperly wearing her head covering out there in public, I guess. This bill would sanction Iran's supreme leader and all members of his inner circle for their human rights abuses. And tell me, are any Democrats supporting this GOP bill?
As of right now, there are no Democrats that are supporting this bill. And to go back to President Biden and his foreign policy, Chris, I would ask you or my guest here, or really anyone, to name a single foreign policy victory that President Biden has had. I'm not going to pause for long because he hasn't had a single victory when it comes to foreign policy. It's been one misstep after another. And, shame on the Biden administration for continuing to cozy up to the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism. And while they've been murdering, censoring, and oppressing their own people for the last 40 years, this administration recognizes that, but yet they've still done everything they can to go back into the deal. So thankfully, there are strong Republican leaderships and leaders in the House and Senate that recognize the Islamic Republic of Iran for the malign, bad actor that they are. I just hope some Democrats cross that aisle and start recognizing that as well.
And Harley, I've only got about a minute left, but doesn't this show the ideological divide between traditional Americans and the modern day Democrat? The Democrats can't even agree with Republicans on punishing human rights abuses in the number one state sponsor of terrorism, Iran.
I would be shocked if the Democrats don't come around and support this. That would be unfortunate, and I would be very unhappy about that, as many Democrats would. I think the Democrats' view is you have to stop Iran from getting a nuclear bomb. So let's make an agreement, and basically we're kicking the can down the road because they're hopeful there'll be change. That's their view in essence. It's a mistake because it's not going to stop them from getting a nuclear bomb. They will cheat, they will get one, and in that part of the world, they'll probably end up using one. So they're a danger to stability and peace in the region and in the world.
Just a horrific thought. Brian Leib and Harley Lippman, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate the discussion. It was a good one.